Hello, beautiful. I'm so excited that you're here for this masterclass. It's been a little hot minute. It's been a while since I've done a masterclass, so it was really exciting to put this together. And so exciting that I'm doing this while I'm in Italy. I'm coming towards the end of my 10-week stay here. So all the vibes and all the energy of this really beautiful and enriching trip is in this masterclass. That's where all these images came from. So let's dive into living slowly, living fully. And my intention with this masterclass is to really invite you into this energy of living more intentionally and slowing down the pace from the rush that so many of us have been really conditioned to be living in right now, which is really depriving us of the abundance and juiciness of life, the fullness of feeling alive that we ought to be living and that we really deserve to be living in as well. What we are going to cover today is just a little bit about me for those of you that are new here, little insights into my journey of living fast and slow and some of the bumps in the road that I've been through in that journey. We'll talk about the real price of fast living and the actual impact that it does have on your body, your mind, your soul, and your life, how it prevents you from living fully. We'll talk about getting into the flow, creating that shift for yourself to slow down in a way that actually feels good and aligned and enriching for you. We'll talk about alpha brainwaves, which are a big piece of getting into that flow. We'll talk about one of the keys to living more fully, which is the key of intention. We'll talk about divine timing, feminine energy, foundations of safety, and about putting all of this together. And at the end of the masterclass, I have my new coaching offer that I'm going to share with you that has just come together in the most beautiful and perfect way to relaunch my private coaching. I've created such a divine container. So make sure you stay to the end to get those details as well. So a little bit about me. My name is Rachel White. If we haven't met already, I'm a creative author, coach, tarot reader, basically a lifelong experimenter and artist of life. I've explored many different things within the personal development, coaching, spiritual space, particularly online, but also done a lot of in-person classes and events and all of that as well. My services and offers are always created with this intention to hold space for enriching experiences, for women to connect with their depth, with their full expression, and ultimately with a life that feels like art. And they feel open and sensual and alive and artful in their expression within that life. I offer coaching, tarot readings, programs. I've written a lot of books. You can explore all of that on my website and on my Instagram at @ByRachelWhite, and you can reach out to me anytime to connect more and learn more about some of the things that I do. Getting into my journey. So I grew up extremely ambitious, and very early on in my life, there was this subconscious mindset ingrained that I had to prove myself, that I had to, I feel like I didn't get a lot of attention because I grew up in a really big household. I was one of 5 kids. We had other family members living with us. It was always loud and chaotic. And I found that the only time the little girl in me felt like she was getting love and attention and praise was when she was achieving something, when she was doing something that got her external recognition, and then that made her family recognize her as well. So I had this energy of I need to prove myself. I need to prove and earn this love that the little girl in me was really craving. So I started rushing to the finish line very early on in life, just trying to get to the award, get to the winning, get to the end point. And I became very attached to this title of being a young achiever. I had this like connection to being a young achiever. I think it started with, I was only 4 years old when I started primary school, because the cutoff, like in Australia, to go into a school year, end of April, and my birthday is the 23rd of April. So I was always pretty much like the youngest, if not one of the youngest people in my classes. And so I kind of like started to develop this like pride around like being the youngest to do certain things. And so I did a lot, I rushed into a lot of things that maybe like I wasn't really actually mature enough at the time, but you could not have told me that at the time. Like there's so many things that I did, and particularly like rushing into a professional career, I look back and think like there's no reason I should have started my professional career at 18. I should have waited. But at the time, it was such an amazing opportunity and things were amazing. But to continue, like in my family, like I said, it was always a lot going on, very loud, and it was never really okay to relax, because the house was like, imagine a house with 5 kids, like, and we're all very close in age, so like 5 young kids going into 5 teenage kids. Like there was always a mess in the house. Like there was always something to do, something to clean, something to cook, homework to do, blah 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 blah. And so like I grew up with a very, very stressed mother, and my extended family were kind of the same way as well. Like they're warriors, they're stressors. So it was like very well known that like it was not okay to relax. And even though they wouldn't have said it like that, if you were ever relaxing while someone else was working or doing something, they would come in and be like, oh, isn't it nice to be a lady of leisure? Like these little backhand compliments that were full of a lot of judgment. So I never wanted to be seen just relaxing. And the only time that it was okay to actually sit down and fully relax is when you were eating. It was like, that was like, if you were eating, someone might come in and like have a go at you, but then they'll be like, no, like I'll let you finish eating and then you can go clean this and blah, blah, blah. So that probably started a lot of my dysregulated relationship with food as well. So I went into my adult life at 17. I started university. In halfway through my first year of university, just after I turned 18, I started my professional job. I started my professional job and working basically as a graduate accountant. And I was getting more addicted to this adrenaline rush of achievement and of recognition. I got a lot of awards through university and a lot of like recognition, because there were a few of us at my university who were working professionally, but a small group. So I was one of them, and I loved that kind of like recognition that came with that. And while I was at uni, I feel like because I had so much variety in my life of things that I was really loving, I was energized. Well, at the time I thought I was really energized in that, but looking back, a lot of it was like this adrenaline rush, that like going to uni part-time, going to work part-time, doing some volunteering, doing all these different things as well. But the adrenaline rush cannot last forever, right? So signs of burnout and lack of joy begun to appear, particularly when I graduated university and started working full-time in 2014. Like these signs of burnout started to come up, but I really just powered through it. In 2014, I also did like a year-long leadership program in that year as well. So I kind of swapped university for that program plus like working full-time. So 2014, I was really looking for ways to deal with like the stress of work, of like working full-time. I feel like was just like the start of the end for me to really realize that the role I was in really wasn't conducive to me living in a vibrant and radiant way. And I started casually going to yoga classes. And it sounds so funny, but I learned how to breathe for the first time in my life. And I know like breathing sounds like a natural thing for us to do, but a lot of us become very dysregulated in the way that we breathe. Like we should be predominantly breathing through the nose, in and out through the nose, where our belly fills with air and then slowly falls. So inhale, belly rises, exhale, belly falls. I didn't realize how much of a mouth breather I was until I started going to these yoga classes. And I didn't realize how often I would be in like this reverse cycle breathing, where when you inhale, your belly comes in, and when you exhale, it goes out. That's reverse cycle breathing. And it's a sign that there is a lot of stress in the body. If you notice that, then breathing practices will be like very, very powerful for you. And so often, like particularly when I was working, I would find myself like forgetting to breathe, like, or like holding my breath. I would be working and then all of a sudden I just have to take like this big gasp of air because I wasn't breathing. Like I was holding my breath, and another sign of stress. So in 2014, when I started going to these classes, that was one of the most powerful things for me to really learn how to breathe and to start learning about the power of the breath. In 2015, a very big shift in my life happened when my grandfather passed away at the start of 2015, and he was from New Zealand. And that kind of ignited this idea in me that I wanted to go work in one of the New Zealand offices for the firm that I was working for, as like a secondment. So I got a 5-month secondment to New Zealand. And this was at a time in my life where I'd finished the leadership program. So I was working full time, but then I was volunteering for like 5 different committees, boards. I was doing a lot of community work. I was doing a lot of things. Like, let's just say like my schedule was like full. Like I was working full time, had things on like every day after work, still like had a lot of family time. So the weekends were like either full of family or events and things like that. So when I went to New Zealand, and it was basically, I was only working full time, I had a lot of space to really see like how cluttered and stressed my mind had become when all of those external doing distractions were gone. And this is where a lot of shifts came, because I started like avidly reading again, since like pre-university. Like through university, anyone who's like studied for a long time, like, you know, that if you kind of just start to read the textbooks. But 2015 is when I really started reading again, and I read so many books around spirituality, self-love. Like I read a lot of Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life books, so many spiritual books about creativity, books about meditation. Just like I was reading a lot because I was getting like the train to work. So I had a lot of time where I could just read. And a lot of things, a lot of shadow work happened in New Zealand, and a lot of big shifts. And when I was there, I randomly went to this workshop, and the girl that was running it was like a goals workshop or something like that in like the KKK stationery store. And the girl that was running it, she like just did a brief introduction about herself, and she mentioned that she was a life coach. And that was the first time that I had ever heard that term. And immediately I was like, oh, like I want to follow that. Like, what is that? So I immediately, like when I got home, I Googled it, looked into it. I found like courses of it. I found like the Beautiful You Coaching Academy online, and some other ones that I was looking into as well at the time. And I decided, okay, like next year I'm going to do this. Like this is something I really want to do. So in 2016, I signed up to this coaching certificate course, and like everyone, I was still working like full time, and everyone was like, why are you doing this? And I kind of justified it as like, oh, like it's going to give me skills like in my accounting job, and like it's just something I really want to do. And I never really thought that I would work with a lot of clients. Like it was just something I wanted to do for myself. I really didn't have a lot of logical justifications. I really wanted to do it. The investment didn't make sense. The time didn't make sense. Like I had just finished my, so after university, when you're doing accounting work, you do your professional delegation study. Like I had just finished that, and it's like, I want to go into more study. Yeah. So I did it. I got the certificate. In 2017, I did my yoga teacher training, and like the epiphany that I wanted to do that came with a hike. I went on like a pilgrimage hike through Japan over a couple of weeks in mid 2016. And I was like on the top of a mountain in tree pose, because I had still been going to like more and more classes. And I was like, I'm going to do my yoga teacher training. So I signed up for that in 2017. my intention was to do it in like 6 months. It actually took me like a couple of years to fully get the certification because I was doing it like self-paced online. But then, so all of this is kind of happening while I'm becoming more and more and more burnt out in my work life. Like a lot of things are happening, like shifts within the organization as well, which were really draining me. But I just like powered through. I was like, I just need to power through. Like, I want to be successful here. There was like the subconscious thing of I want to prove myself here, right? So, but it all kind of like crumbled in 2018 and I left. And I really thought, like, I'm so stressed, but as soon as I leave this full-time job, everything is going to magically improve. But it didn't straight away. And I kind of took like this extended break. I was teaching yoga, I was doing a bit of tutoring, like I was doing what I needed to get by and showing up in those situations. But I was really checked out. Like I was mentally checked out. I was checked out from my usual like ambitious future planning. And I had to be in this state of like prolonged stillness and mental checkout for my body to recover in some way. So it was like a huge pendulum shift of like going from one extreme to the next extreme. And then I'm going to quickly go through the rest of this over the next 4 years. So from when I left my accounting job to working in my business stuff over those 4 years, I really went through like this big spiral and many initiations, many kind of like relapsing, like growing, relapsing, creating, healing, personal development, like so many different things. And in 2022, I really decided that I wanted more stability back, particularly financial stability. So I started working part-time in accounting again, but in a completely different aspect of accounting. So it didn't carry the same stress and responsibility and kind of like extreme focus on time, like as public practice accounting that I was doing like internal accounting work, which is very chill and laid back. And so I thought that I was going to really retire from my business, but creating these services and creating these things and doing the things that I do in my business are just so innate within me and the service I have in the world and my creative expression. So I just felt like I was doing little things, but it didn't carry the same pressure or focus that it did previously, which was causing like these relapses of like the stress again. So and working part-time is really what funded me to have this trip in Italy. Like it's been very grounding and expansive. And I feel there's another expansion coming for next year within my offerings and the business stuff that I have. Like there's really beautiful things happening. So this is such a snapshot of the journey I've been in. There's just so much that happened within all of those years that I gave the most basic summary for. And your story may feel similarities, or it may be similar in the way that you may be at your point of like extreme burnout right now. You may be kind of relapsing. You may feel like you're going in these spirals, but know that it's never like a circle. Sometimes we can think we're going around in circles, like always getting pulled back to the same things, but it's always a spiral. Like there's always a shift. Like we're never just in the same point. We're spiraling up. Sometimes we can spiral down a little bit, but we're getting to different points and getting to access different things, and it can feel like the same thing is coming up again and again, but it's coming up in different circumstances so that we have the opportunity to perceive it in a different way, to experience it in a different way, and to ultimately move through it. This polarity in our life is really important, this ebb and flow. But if we spend too long in either side of the spectrum, like in extreme polarity, it's really counterproductive to the radiant and abundant life that you really deserve to be living. And like in my experience, like I was in extreme stress for a very long time. And then I spent a bit of time in just like avoiding like the nothingness, the mental checkout. And like it's kind of been a little swing closer towards the middle for a little bit. But now it's much more like grounded, and I can spend time like like doing things, achieving things, resting fully, but it's more of like a beautiful ebb and flow instead of like, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to stay here, and then like a fight between the two. Different circumstances and environments, like we need to be in these situations to fully heal from different things, especially the things that were so deeply ingrained into us as children. So really give yourself the grace. Give yourself grace and patience. Okay, give yourself grace and patience and love. If it feels like the same thing keeps coming up, because it's all a part of your journey and it's all a part of the opportunity and the invitations you have to heal things by having different things that trigger them, different situations where you get to look at that part of yourself and explore the depth within yourself. Okay, let's get into the price of fast living. So rushing through life elevates stress and cortisol levels within your body. And these prolonged states of stress are very, very harmful to the body, to the mind. Stress is a signal to the body that we need to react to something, to fight, flight, freeze, to be in that stress response. And being in this constant state of stress can cause these reactions that really derail us from the life that we want to be living, and that would be the most enriching for us to be living. There's so many impacts of stress on the body, and living fast will ultimately result in stress. So the impacts on the body is that it really disrupts a lot of the hormones, progesterone, which is linked to fertility and energy. When the body is in that fight or flight freeze response, the body downregulates the reproductive system. So downregulates the production of progesterone, which really lowers your energy, can bring you into like this state of fatigue, and can really disrupt your cycle as well. It disrupts your thyroid hormones, which is responsible for your metabolism and many other things in the body. And stress kind of forms like the reverse of T3, which is very harmful. And cortisol becomes really dysregulated when you have long-term stress, and it creates like this protective barrier around your vital organs, because your body feels like it's fighting to survive and it needs these reserves to survive. And that's a very oversimplificated like summary of the hormone impacts. Dr. Libby Weaver is like an expert on these topics, and I've learned so much about the impact of stress on hormones and the body from her work. If you want to kind of dive into the scientific or the research of all of that, you can definitely explore. She has a book called Rushing Women Syndrome, which is good if you want to understand exactly what rushing and stress is doing to your body. But just trust that it's just dysregulating to a point that it's really derailing you from the vision that you have for your life and the way that you want to live your life. The impact on your mind is that it compromises your memory, your sleep, your intelligence, your thinking. I'm going to talk more about how it compromises your thinking when we talk about brainwaves. And when these issues start occurring, usually if you're already in that state of rushing, you go to rush into trying to fix the symptoms without really addressing the root cause of what is making you so stressed. And if you are feeling really stressed, know that sometimes it is a mindset thing that needs to be cleared. Sometimes it is just like a season of life you're in, and you kind of carry that forward into moments where you didn't really need to rush and maintain like that level of being addicted to adrenaline and all of those things. And sometimes it's really rooted in our childhood wounding and our childhood trauma, and it's something that we get the chance to heal and address as adults. There's huge impacts to our creativity and our relationships when we're stressed, when we're rushing through life, when we're living too fast. We can't be our best and most alive self when we're living this way. So of course that has huge impacts on our relationships and on our creativity. We're cut off from our sacral, from our creative flow, from our safety to actually create. When we're in survival mode, we can't be our most creative self because our body is focused on surviving. If we want to be in a full creative flow, like our body needs to be there for that journey. And yes, we can still do things and think that we're doing a lot and creating a lot, but it isn't until we're actually slowed down and in flow with our actual personal tempo and the natural rhythms of life and like the pace that is actually enriching to you. It's not until we're in that place that you'll even see how you can be your most creative self and how naturally and easy it comes when you're in that state, as opposed to having to feel like you're forcing it when you're living too fast. So all of these impacts really put you in this destructive loop where you feel like you're busy, like you think you're so busy and you think you're doing so much, but you're actually getting nothing done, nothing that's enriching to your life, nothing that brings you joy in the moment. And so more control and more stress is exerted, but it actually just keeps getting you nowhere. And it can be such a big reality check when you just really have a look at what are the things you're doing in your life and what reality are those actions actually creating. And when I say fast pace, this isn't about comparing your pace of life to others. It's about not living like you are constantly sprinting towards a finish line that keeps moving further away from you. We all have very different natural tempos that shift throughout different periods of our life. We're going to talk about the natural flow later, but you may see someone who is like just achieving things so quickly, who seems to be able to effortlessly bring things together, or is the same age of you and is like so further along in life and whatever thoughts you're coming up about this person. But you really don't know, like they could be the most stressed out and burnt out they have ever been in their life, or they could just have a natural pace of, they could be in a natural sprint. And then you don't see where they're just resting on their couch for like days after. You don't see like the full picture. So it's never productive to impact of that pace. And you also don't know their creative expression, and you may not even know your natural creative expression and how easily you can get in a flow until you've given yourself that space to slow down your pace and to come into that flow. So one other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the fast pace of living is that there is this collective programming that I really invite you to start to shift now, and that is that those who work hard are more deserving. Those who work hard are more deserving. I mean, we hear this about, I'm sure you can apply this in so many different ways, but I want you to know that you can put work into the things that you care about, into your life, your dreams, your goals, without it being hard work that completely burns you out and derails you from feeling joy and disconnects you from your body and just doesn't have like fulfilling impacts. You are capable of working harder, but you have nothing to prove and nothing to defend. Like you don't have to work harder. You can work hard without pushing yourself to always work harder and to burn yourself out. You are deserving because you exist. So I want you to have maybe like a little look at the people you think have all these things that they don't deserve. And I want you to really be honest with yourself why you think that way. And could that actually be limiting you in terms of how much joy you could experience by feeling like you deserve things without having to work for them? There's some things that, yes, we need to put in effort for. We feel like we need to earn them in a way. And that's okay to work for those things if you actually care about them. But when you're disconnected from your body, sometimes we put in a lot of hard work for things that we actually don't want. And we can't see that clarity until we get to like a rock bottom point and can have the realization. But that's because we slow down at rock bottom, right? You can either be forced to slow down or intentionally slow down more. So you being willing to put action and effort into something can move you closer to having the things that you want, but it isn't innately what makes you deserving of having those things. Like, you deserve what you want because you want it, but just because you deserve something doesn't always mean you're going to have it as well. So there's a lot of things we can unpack here in terms of how deserving we feel and how much work we feel we need to put into things. So sometimes there is like this feeling of guilt or shame subconsciously that comes up when we get things that we feel like we don't deserve because it came to us too effortlessly. So I want you to really practice like the things that come to you effortlessly, enjoy receiving them, like relish in receiving them, and know that you deserve them because you exist, because you deserve them, because you have them. Let's talk about getting into the flow. Slowing down is what collapses timelines through clarity and alignment. When you slow down and when you slower the pace and actually give yourself a pause or give yourself space, you're in a position to have clarity on what it is that you actually want and into what is actually productive and enriching for you to put your time and energy into. So through that clarity, you put that energy into things that do move you towards that vision, that does enrich your life, and that aligns you with actually experiencing the life you want. Whereas if you don't slow down, you don't give yourself that space for clarity, and you put so much, like you leak so much of your energy into these things that really don't matter, or that are actually actively creating things that you don't want in your life. Slowing down also energizes you to pour more into the most enriching aspects of your life. And when you feel enriched, when you are putting energy into things that enrich your life, then you're more energized to do more things. Whereas if you are only doing things that are like you're rushing through, you're getting burnt out, you don't feel like empowered or energized or motivated to do the things that you really want to be doing because you're just so freaking tired from forcing yourself to rush through and to do all the things that are actually stressing you out. So then it takes longer if it takes longer or stops you completely from getting to the places that you really want to be and that you really want to go. So slowing down collapses the time for us to have the things we want, to live the way we want to live more fully, and to be more present in the moment and live more fully in the moment. Living out of flow versus living in flow. So imagine like you're just trying to rush out the door, but you can't find your keys, you can't find your wallet, you tripped and knocked like a hot mug of tea and it broke and it poured all over your outfit, so you have to get changed. Like, these are signs of living out of flow, where you're rushing but you're causing all of these mistakes and that you're going to have to come back to fix. So it's taking you longer to get to the same place, just even in that moment. Whereas being in flow, it's like you're present, so you know exactly like where your keys are just comes to your mind because you're present and you know exactly where to look. You get all green traffic lights, but even if you don't, you take it as a moment like to breathe. Like, there's such clear signs when we're out of flow and in flow, and usually we recognize them when everything is just in flow and just like flowing perfectly. When we're out of flow, it's like it's just another thing that stresses us and another thing that rushes us. But when you're in flow, it's like there's less mistakes and there's more focus. So again, it collapses time, like and it creates a more enriching experience in the moment as well. So here are some gentle ways to be more in flow. And I say gentle because these are very like subtle shifts that you can make that bring you into this really beautiful, enriching flow. And it is important to get to the root issue of why we are so stressed and these mindset limiting and all of these things that we have. But sometimes we can just be too stressed and too addicted to the adrenaline rush to even like look at that. So there needs to be like this transition space where we slow down and bring ourselves to a space of feeling grounded enough to be able to address those things. Okay, so gentle things are to start this mindset reprogramming, to play subliminal or frequency music. There's so many things on YouTube. Like if you just Google like heart frequency music or like manifestation subliminals or something like that. So subliminal music is basically, it's like, it just sounds like relaxing music, but there's these affirmations and statements that are hidden within the music. So our subconscious mind is hearing what the affirmations are, but we can't hear it. So I feel like this is such a gentle way because your active mind isn't involved. It's just starting to get your subconscious mind involved in this process of slowing down and calming down. Frequency music is really powerful. I'll talk more about that when we talk about alpha brainwaves. And then the next thing is giving your mind new background noise that empowers you. So often we have just really noticed, like, what is the background noise of your mind? It could be this song that you listen to on replay. It could be parts of like a movie that you watch all the time, or it could be thoughts that you say to yourself. Start to give yourself new background noise. It could be different music, different shows, or it could be these like subliminals can give you new affirmations that repeat. It could be that you listen to actual affirmations or give yourself a mantra that if you find your mind distracted, come to that mantra. There's practices like japa beads where you say the mantra or the affirmation like many times first thing in the morning, and that kind of becomes your new background. And this can just help give you an anchor to keep you present when you do find yourself rushing and you're trying to transition out of that, to give yourself a mantra to ground you. It's like as soon as you feel something in your body, it's like, oh, like I think of this and I say that new background noise, whatever it is, and it anchors you back into present. Because when you're in a state of stress, like you go into this autopilot mode. And you know, you've probably felt this where you get into the car and drive somewhere or drive home and you get there and you think, how did I even get here? Like, I don't even remember driving here. Like your body and your mind were in autopilot. And that's how we can like lose a lot of time to feel enriched in our life as well, like going to these autopiloted states. So we need something to anchor us back into presence. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that, but having new background noise for your mind is a really, really powerful way. Grounding is so important. Be in nature as much as you can. Be barefoot on the grass, go hug a tree, sit in your backyard, plant a little pot of herbs to have in your kitchen, whatever way that is accessible to you to be in contact with nature as much as you can is one of the most powerful ways we can bring ourselves back into flow, because nature naturally like grounds us and attunes us like with the flow of life, the flow of the universe. So connecting with nature as much as we can is really, really powerful. Give yourself contrast to break habits. That autopilot I was talking about really comes from the ingrained habits that we have in our life, because our body's like, yep, I know exactly what she's going to do here. So I'm going to take her in autopilot, shut her conscious mind off for a second and just take her through this. It could be driving. It could be like as soon as you get home, you grab something and you eat it, or like whatever it may be. And those habits take us into autopilot because of familiar environments. We don't go into autopilot as much when we're in new environments because we need to be consciously aware and present to what is happening. Traveling is the most amazing contrast that you can give yourself, but simple things like not always driving the exact same way when you go to work or when you go home, not walking the exact same path every day, not just doing something a little bit differently, making your breakfast a slightly different way or having something slightly different. What are some little ways you can start to bring contrast into your life? And this brings a lot more presence into your life, which allows you to slow down and to come more into that flow. And also give yourself spaces of nothingness. And this is something that your mind and your body may really resist at first. And we'll talk about that more in a second when we talk about alpha brainwaves. But how can you just give yourself like a minute of nothingness, 5 minutes? Can you give yourself like half an hour where you haven't put your phone away, so you have no, like, you don't know what the time is, you can't check the time, and you just like lay in nothingness? And you can set a timer to give yourself some structure that feels safe to you. But can you start giving yourself like these pockets of nothingness, like actually lean into this art of letting yourself be bored, letting yourself be in this void? And there is so much power to come from that. Okay, let's talk about these alpha brainwaves. So our brain operates in different frequencies at different times, depending on what we are doing and what we are thinking about. And within each frequency, our brain and our mind has different capabilities. So we have the delta, theta, alpha, beta. There's also gamma, but that's separate, a little more complicated to explain for right now. So the delta waves are basically when we are in a deep sleep. Like our brain waves are very slow. Our body should be in like that state of rest, digest, like full rest, recovery, REM sleep. And then theta is usually when we're in that state of like where we're almost asleep. Some people can get to a theta state in like very deep meditation, but the brain waves are going like very, very slow. And it's only the like subconscious mind that is moving in this space. Alpha waves is where we are in our most calm and relaxed state. Like we are conscious, we're actively aware, and we have access to our highest intelligence, our most creative solutions, and our clearest thinking in this alpha state. Usually when you do a breathing practice or meditation practice, the alpha waves is usually what we bring our mind into, like this alpha state where we have access to rewire our conscious mind, but we are still present as well. So it's a very, very powerful state. And because we have like this greater access conscious mind, I'll remember that your subconscious mind like takes in every single thing, like every bit of data, like the billions and billions and billion bits of data that your eyes, that every sense in your body is exposed to, that your mind is exposed to. Like your subconscious mind is taking it all in. But we have this filter that allows us to consciously be aware of some of the things we've taken in. But in this alpha state, like we have greater access to the subconscious to access these things that we don't think about when we are only in the beta brainwave. So the beta brainwave is like really quick waves. And this is where we are like actively doing something, like thinking, like very like in our full thinking mind, very action focused. And, you know, we're a little heightened in our body, and we need to be in this beta state sometimes to get some things done, to move through things, to plan things, to organize things, like that little bit of heightened energy to use our thinking brain is really powerful in our life. But the problem is that too many people spend far too long in that beta state that it actually cuts them off from their deeper and highest intelligence and their clearest thinking. And this is the reason why some people do so poorly in like exam and testing environments, because they, you know, even though like they've studied and they know it, they go into these exams and they're actually so stressed that they go into this full beta brainwave where there's no actual threat. You know, they could be calm and relaxed, just writing answers, but they're so heightened that they actually like cut themselves off from their clear thinking, from their memory, from accessing all the access their mind that can think about surviving and doing. So they don't have access to the deep insights that they naturally would. And this can happen in our life when you're stressed or when you're rushing through life. Imagine like never being able to access the comebacks and the thoughts and the insights that you want, like in the moment that you want to share them. when you're in your alpha brainwave state, that's when you're most grounded, when you're most calm, when you're most intelligent, most intuitive. And this is why, like, if we don't give ourselves the space to go into this alpha state within our mind throughout our day, it can feel like the moment when we like get in the shower or like just go into bed and finally close our eyes, where we are actually slowing down, it can feel like all of a sudden you're remembering all of these things. It's like, oh, I didn't do that today. Oh, I should have done this. I made that mistake at work. All of these things. And also like, oh, like that's a good idea. I should have said that. I should have blah, blah, blah. That's why it feels like that sometimes. If your mind and your body hasn't had a chance throughout an entire day to go into that alpha state, it's like there's this backlog of all of these things that really wanted to come through, but being in the beta state, it was blocked from coming through. And then as soon as you relax, it'll pausing, because it's like, oh my God, like we need to get this into her conscious brain now, because it's the only chance we're going to have, because it's the only chance that we're going to see her relax. If you give yourself more space in the alpha state throughout your day, you have less of that when you're finally going to bed or when you're getting in the shower. And those moments, like when you're in the shower, can be, instead of it being full of like remembering all these things you should have said or should have done, it can actually be either like a moment of just peaceful calm, or where these really amazing creative ideas come through as well. Like our most creative ideas come when we're in that alpha state as well. And when we allow ourselves to be in the alpha state more frequently throughout our day, it's easier to get into the theta and delta and to actually have deep restorative sleep. If you have very dysregulated sleep, you're probably very stressed in your life. So just understanding like how your brain and how your mind is working, you to actually really slow down and to know that your brain and your body is going to work so much more optimally and actually help you to effortlessly live a more enriching life when you give it space to calm down. And sometimes, it sounds like being calm and relaxed isn't conducive with being like an achiever and getting things done, but it actually will help you get more things done. Always. All right, let's talk about a key. One of the key, like the main keys to really slowing down, which is your intention for how you want to live your life. And sometimes, like often for people that rush a lot, they don't even slow down enough to ask themselves this question of, how do I want to live my life? How do I want to feel in my body while I am living my life? What things would actually feel enriching for me? And slowing down allows space for those questions to come up, but also space for you to contemplate and percolate on those questions. Like you don't need to have an answer straight away. And if you're in this like beta brainwave state, a clear answer isn't going to come through anyway. Like some things we really need to sit within our body and really this clarity. When you have this clarity on like what you want, what you value, what you stand for, you can start being so much more intentional with what you are actually doing and what you are putting your energy into in your life. Instead of rushing through just doing something, you have this really beautiful focused direction, and that like structure really allows a much more potent and powerful flow. It's kind of like imagine like a hose. Like I'm just visualizing a hose. Like if the hose is very like focused, then the water can come through like in a much like potent, focused, like powerful way, and the water that comes out is focused and directed. Whereas like if you have like a really wider hose or wider cylinder that you're pouring things into, it becomes much more like the pressure is less, and the end result of where the water pours out is more like fast spread and maybe isn't going directly to the things that you want to water and want to grow in your life. And when you have like this stronger direction and focus, you can stop reacting to things that aren't actually serving you, and to stop like something comes up and you just do it straight away because you're not actually intentionally thinking about what would actually be like is this actually important for me to put my energy into. So with the jar story that I have a dot point there, this is a book that I read when I was in New Zealand in 2015. The book is called Eat the Frog First. It's like it was a book on like productivity, but there was a story in it that I always think about. And the story goes that there was this professor at a college class, and he had a jar and all these different things that had to go within the jar. There were little rocks, there were shells, there was sand, there was water, there was bigger rocks, there were all these things that had to go in the jar. And he started to put things in the jar, and he started putting the smallest things in first. Like he put the sand and the water, he put the little rocks, he put the shells. And then when it came to put the big rocks in, they didn't actually fit, and the jar couldn't be closed because there was no room for these big rocks to fully fit in. Whereas when he put things into the jar with the big rocks first, he could put the big rocks in, and then he put like the shells and the little rocks, and then the sand, and then the water. Everything fit perfectly, and the lid closed. And this is a really good metaphor for what the difference it makes when we put our priorities first, when we put the big rocks first. When we put the big rocks first, our priorities first, everything else will fit around it. Whereas when we do the little unimportant things first, the priorities are never going to quite fit. And we're always going to sacrifice something about the priorities when we put little unimportant things first. And sometimes when you're in like this rushed energy, it can be like, I just want to get these off my plate and get these done so I can clear my plate, and then I can be relaxed and focused on the priority. But that's actually like this sneaky way the subconscious mind sabotages you from actually focusing on your priorities. Show up for your priorities first, and everything else will fit around it. And sometimes that can feel really challenging to really embrace, because it's like, yes, there is laundry to be done. There are dishes to be done. There is food to cook and blah, blah, blah. But when we put those first and make them a priority, we take longer to do those things. Whereas if we do our priorities first, then we will find a way to do the laundry and do the dishes and do the cooking and whatever else in whatever time we have to do them. Trust me, play with it and do the things that are actually enriching first. And this can be a practice to be able to be calm and relaxed and to show up for those priorities while there are things that need to be done. Like, can you let them be in the background to focus on your priority and know that you have like a commitment to come back to those things, but you'll find a way for them to be done. And it could be that you actually can outsource them. And when you're so rushed and stressed, sometimes you are in that energy of, I just need to do everything myself, but could someone else actually help do those things? That may not always be the case, but sometimes it is. And sometimes some of the things that you're doing actually don't need to be done at all, but because you're so stressed and focused on doing all the little things, you just do them anyway. And focusing on your priorities is an easy way to create a filter with what actually needs to be done. Create space to percolate, for that gentle contemplation. I talked about this just before, that sometimes we just need space for things to percolate, be in our mind. And like how this masterclass came together is a good example of that. Like, this has been from the idea to now, like it's been a couple of weeks, and I just let things like have like an outline and then let things kind of percolate. I didn't rush to create the exact things I was going to talk about. I didn't do it at the last minute. I put some things down and then I let it percolate. And when we allow this to be a practice in our life, deeper insights can come through, because every time we bring ourselves, if we have like a focus and a point of musing, every time we're in that like relaxed state, or when we're just living and enjoying our life, things come up and ideas come up in a way that we can put them together. So your intention and a little bit of structure will really help to focus your flow and the spaciousness that you give yourself and that you give your life through slowing down will produce such beautiful creations and beautiful expressions. Taking your time is a luxury, and the luxury of time is one of the most beautiful luxuries that you can have to whatever capacity suits your life. I know we all live different lives, and I'm not telling you that you can do nothing all of the time, but look at what luxury of time is actually available to you. Could you go a little slower in some areas? Could you take a little longer in some areas? Like, how can you actually really indulge in this luxury of time in a way that does feel like a luxury and that feels enriching to you? And for me, like, using this word luxury, I mentioned at the start when I talked about my journey of like that insult that so many of my family members have when they see someone relaxing. They'll be like, oh, lady of leisure, lady of luxury. Like, reclaim some of the things. Like, if you've been called lazy, if you've been called like the backhanded, like lady of leisure, like these insults, like, can you reclaim and reframe those words to actually be something and empowering and beautiful about the way that you live your life and the way that you choose to live your life? When it comes to divine timing, believe me when I say that you have time. Like, you have time. One of the key ways to see that you are stressed and veering towards burnout, brainwave state, is that you feel this constant pressure of running out of time, of not having enough time. And that is definitely something I felt for like a lot of my life, like just this pressure of like, I need to do these things like while I'm young, while I have time. But believe me, like, you have time and everything will come together in divine timing for your story. And it's only when we have hindsight to the story that we will see how everything came together perfectly in divine timing, and how all these like invisible strings and different pieces were connected the entire time. The flow of this masterclass coming together involved me like randomly seeing this Facebook ad for this opportunity to come to Italy, to applying like about a year later. I discovered like astrocartography, which led me to go to Bari, which is a city in Italy where my Venus placement is in astrology. And that it was like I could get the train there. So I went there, and then I went to this ballet performance where this idea like dropped in for this masterclass, and then ideas flooded. And like that journey of this stringing together, like, how beautiful. Like, who knows what would have happened if I didn't see that Facebook ad? But how could I have ever predicted this is where it was going to lead when I saw that Facebook ad? Like, you can't predict the layout of your life, but trust that all the pieces are coming together. And then the insights that you receive this masterclass, like maybe that leads you on a journey. And I have no doubt that like this has already sprung so much more creative ideas within me, and where that leads, like everything is connected and everything is part of the story. Your life is unfolding in a way that your mind cannot possibly fathom or comprehend right now. And when you give yourself that mental break from trying to work it all out and trying to plan and control, you can relax into your body and actually fully live in the moment of the story that you're in right now, and trust that it's all in divine timing. You have time, you have space, you're not running out of time. Believe me when I say that. A beautiful story about like this picture that I've chosen for this slide is while I've been in Italy, I've been doing like little trips to different places. And this place that I went into a church. There's so many beautiful churches in Italy, like the artwork. I mainly go like to see the artwork, but the churches do feel like really sacred places here too. So I went to this church, and they had like, you know, the stained glass window that a lot of churches have. And there was this really like beautiful rainbow light shining like on this column, and then it kept going down, and it was like that rainbow light was shining on a seat, like, you know, like the church seats as well. So I was walking through, and it was in a place where, excuse me for a second. So there was like three different things I wanted to see in this town, and I was kind of like I was I was like looking at everything and enjoying it, but like I was in like a little bit of a rush because like, oh, I need to like go see this church now because then I'm gonna go see the other thing like after that. And I was kind of like mentally planning like what I'm gonna do, how much time I have in each place. And then I saw this. I want to talk a little bit about feminine energy. So if um so if you're new like to these topics, they're not gendered, but they are connected to our expression of gender in the world. But when it comes to just the energy, masculine energy is space and consciousness, and feminine energy is life and movement. It is the energy itself. For us who identify as feminine beings, who have predominant feminine energy in our body, we embody much more feminine energy. Like, it comes much more natural to us than the embodiment of masculine energy. So in our feminine energy, like, we are, like, as women, we bring life and beauty and movement into the world through the way that we live our life. And for us to fully embody our feminine energy, there needs to be safety in the space and structure that we live in. For something to fully flow, like, there needs to be something holding that space. Otherwise, the flow kind of like dissipates and doesn't hold the same potency. It's like a car is masculine, the fuel or the gas is the feminine that actually makes the structure go. And it's the same with the riverbed example. The riverbank, the land, is the masculine, and the water that flows within it is the feminine, is the energy, is the movement, is the thing that brings life. We as feminine beings need this structure and this space to feel our most alive, to be the embodiment of this energy and this life and this movement. We can give ourselves that structure. Even though we are predominantly feminine beings, we still have masculine energy within us. We still have the capacity to hold space, to bring structure. And like, the masculine energy in our life can be the structure in itself that we have implemented and put in place. When you're in your feminine embodiment, you're in this energy of being like so alive and radiant that you're in the energy of receiving and not chasing. And this allows you to be in this energy of intentionally living a slower life that does feel more fulfilling and more enriching, because there isn't this pressure to achieve or succeed in places where your energy isn't naturally flowing. And the feminine energy that is naturally flowing and alive can achieve so many things. Of course, like, it creates life, creates beauty, creates creations, and masculine to achieve goals and do things like that is very feminine, to put energy into things that brings them to life. And like, but there does need to be structure, things holding that energy for it to feel safe to actually birth creations into the world and to bring things to life. And there's so much more depth within this exploration of feminine energy, but I just wanted to leave that for you to sit with for now. When it comes to like embodying more of your feminine energy, the first thing is like that structure. Like, what structure and what is going to hold space for you in a way that makes you feel safe to explore this part of yourself? So I need to play with things that bring safety and sensuality into your life. Play with what could enrich the most simple moments in your life. Integrate this playfulness and this alive, awakened energy into the things that you're already doing. What brings more beauty into your life? And this is a way to play with that feminine energy and to bring yourself more in flow with creating things that are really enriching to you. Also honor your cycles of movements, the ebbs and the flows. Like, the void is fertile and become pregnant. It can become pregnant with potential when you rest there. That's like a line that is in that I learned, or that I saw for the first time in the Gene Keys. The first and the second Gene Keys are like the feminine and masculine, and something that it says is like, the void is fertile and can become pregnant. And I love that analogy, that when you let yourself rest in nothingness, in entropy, that it's called in the Gene Keys, when you let yourself rest there, it can feel nothingness. And it can, when you're relaxed, it feels like peace. When you're not relaxed, it feels like pressure. But when you're relaxed in that peace of nothingness, like that's when these beautiful ideas can spring forward, and you become like pregnant with the idea and you can bring it to life. But there are these ebbs and flows. Like sometimes we're in that ebb and sometimes we're in the flow of like moving really quickly, doing things and putting a lot of energy into the thing that we're bringing Mother Chrome. And we have these different archetypes of feminine embodiment to play with within those phases. The maiden is very active and doing a lot of things, is very productive. The mother is very nurturing and protective, and the crone is very reflective and wise. And we have all of that within us to play with at different times. And there are different times within our own natural cycles where we will feel more connected to those different archetypes, but we have access to them as women all the time as well. So the feminine is not just careless and flowing. She's also not just like head in the clouds and floating around. She can be very focused and impactful. She can be nurturing and protective, and she can be wise and reflective. She is all of this, but can be parts of that expression in different places as well. So when it comes to playing with your embodiment of your feminine, it's about not overvaluating one so that you reject the others. Can you play with being a full, whole embodied woman, but also playing with these different ways that you get to express yourself? As a collective, there is this obsession with the maiden, with women staying young, active, attractive, according to the beauty standards of whatever they are at the time. This obsession does not serve us as women who want life. That obsession really keeps us in this state of being overly focused on our productivity, on what we are achieving, of what we are doing, of rushing, and ultimately being stressed. And it's all playing into the patriarchy of how men are designed to live in ways that aren't actually enriching to us, in the ways that we can actually bring beauty and life into the world in different, more that create a fulfilling life for us. When it comes to being in that feminine energy, safety is important, and safety is also important for us to feel at home in our body, in a space where we can slow down and where we are relaxed, where we can go into that alpha brainwave state, when we can be connected to our creativity and to our body. And creating this foundation of safety is so, so important to a life that feels fulfilling and enriching in all the things. And it can be a challenge to go slow or to feel good going slow when your body is convinced that you are in danger, that at any second you might have to run for your life, that at any second something can come around the corner and attack you or harm you in some way. And that danger for a lot of us isn't an actual lion jumping out and attacking us. And we love rejecting us, or just something breaking that we didn't expect that we're going to have to spend more money on, or just all the things that your mind is kind of mentally preparing for could go wrong. When you hold all of that in your body feels like it's going to be attacked by a lion. It doesn't know the difference between different stresses, but the stresses that we have in our life and the things that could potentially go wrong doesn't warrant the same reaction from our body as if we were being attacked by a lion. So we need to bring ourselves into this space where we can be prepared for some things that could actually happen in our life, or we can be we can be present and relaxed and living in the moment that we're in, to actually have the grounded foundation to know that we have things in place to deal with things in life as they come up, but to not let those little moments distract us from actually living a full life in the moment that we are living. This is where like healing for your nervous system, for your past wounds, is very, very important. Everyday grounding is very important. Your breath is your most powerful and simple tool when it comes to having this foundation of safety, anchoring into this foundation of safety, moving into that alpha brainwave state that we talked about earlier. And there are ways to play with all of like what we've talked about and to start building these things. And you know, there are, when it comes to like the root issues, like the wounding that we have, like the deeper things that are causing some of the stress and rushing in our life and the way we are living, sometimes like we're not even going to be in a space to know what those things are until we've brought ourselves to a safer place to actually see them. Because when our body's in survival mode, it's not thinking about like, okay, like there's this deep thing I've buried, I'm running from a lion, but now's the time to bring up that thing. Like, no, like you need to be in a safe space, a space of creation for your body to be like, okay, like we're actually safe to bring this back into the conscious awareness, right? When you start to play with all of these things that I've talked about, know that you may innately sense that, yes, there are some deeper things to work with. But again, give yourself patience and grace and come in gently and come in slowly and be in a grounded, stable, safe space to then live in an enriching way where you have like that anchoring to actually then move through deeper things and to also expand into more beautiful and fulfilling things as well that is on your heart's desires. So we're almost finished putting this all into practice, living slowly, open space to live fully. That's the takeaway here. Living slowly, slowing down the pace opens the space to live in a more fulfilling, enriching way with more clarity, more alignment, more abundance, and just more enriching joy. Slowly doesn't mean you do nothing and that you indulge in the ebbs of like doing absolutely nothing. It means that you are in flow with the ebbs and the flow. That in the ebbs you indulge of the nothingness, and in the flow you act quickly and move, but it comes naturally. It's not a forced, stressed action. Instead of continuously feeling like you are swimming against the currents of life, just like fighting to get forward, trying to sprint to a moving finish line, you rest and you just lay back and you float. And then when you bring yourself in flow with the currents, then you can start moving with the currents and swimming with the currents to move even faster towards where you're going. In flow, there is space for presence and joy through the journey. Your purpose becomes so much clearer, and your purpose ultimately is to live fully. And that purpose can have different subcategories for all of us. We all have different things that we naturally want to bring to life and experience in the world. But your ultimate purpose is to be yourself, to live fully as yourself, to simply exist in a enriching. What does that look like specifically for you? And again, like that's a question to contemplate, to not pressure an answer to come forward with. When you are living fully, you see much more clearly how rich you really are, how much abundance is actually present, and more abundance naturally. You receive more abundance naturally. This is like the energy you want to bring yourself in, to receive, but to be grateful for what you have as well. Putting all of this into practice, like you live a more enriching life, and your memory isn't compromised, so you actually remember it and you're present to it, and everything feels like a flow that constantly is building momentum and attracting different things for you. So with that, I want to talk about, first of all, before we go into my new coaching offer, if you have any questions or comments about anything that I've shared, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you more. I would love to answer any questions. And I want to talk a little bit about my new 10-week coaching program, Metamorphosis. This is a private coaching program that feels like this really beautiful, safe cocoon that you're going to enter into, where the parts of you that are not serving your life are going to gently dissolve away. The beautiful, radiant parts of your brilliance will remain, like the cells of the caterpillar that remain, or the wings of the butterfly to grow from. That's the metaphor of this program, and that is the experience you'll move through. I have a planned 10 weeks, so there is like that beautiful nurturing structure to it that also holds space for the things that are going to come up in your life as we're moving through this 10 weeks. We start with your vision, we move into your mindset, some rework, some reprogramming. We're moving to healing for the body. And I have the full 10 weeks laid out on the website if you want to see exactly what we focus on every week. And there's just so much richness to come from those structured topics, and it will flow in a really personalized way for you. So this is really for you if you're feeling a little disconnected or a lot disconnected from your radiance, and you really want to connect back into your brilliance, your radiance, the full expression of who you are to live an enriched life. That is the purpose of this program, and the ultimate goal of this program is to move you into this place of coming into the cocoon and being birthed into your brilliance. It is 10 weeks, one-on-one, and is such an amazing and beautiful experience for you to have. If you have any questions, please reach out. I would love to talk to you about it. I'll send the link in this replay for with the website link where you can see all the details as well. The investment is $1,000 in Australian dollars, and you can do that in up to a 6-month payment plan. So it's about $167 a month, I think, for if you divide that over 6 months. So it's very accessible for you to come into this now. And it is by application, but that application, the details are on the website, but it's basically just you sending me a message to say like who you are, what is drawing you to this, like where you are now in your life, what you want to move into, just details about yourself, just to see if we are a good fit for each other. And of course, if you have any questions or anything you wanted to talk about before committing, very open to having those conversations with you. So this is going to be such a beautiful, amazing, and enriching experience for you if you are ready to really step into that grounded, fully expressed version of yourself. It will be a very nurturing and activating 10 weeks together. As I said before, if you have questions, please reach out. I would always love to speak with you. You can reach out. I'll have my email and Instagram and everything in a second. I think here, yes. So stay connected with me. My Instagram is @ByRachelWhite. My website is there. My email is there. Reach out if you have any questions on private coaching, tarot programs, any of the things that I do. And if you've loved anything from this masterclass, I would absolutely love for you to take a photo or a screenshot or a picture of yourself or your space or whatever it is and share it to your Instagram story. Write your insight or whatever you loved about this masterclass and to tag me. I would absolutely love that. And I'd love to see that you're watching and what you receive from it. And if you want to send a private message, that would be really amazing instead of or as well. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you have enjoyed this masterclass. I hope you have got some insights that have inspired or empowered you in some way. And most of all, I hope that you embrace slowing down so that you can live more fully in your life and live the way that you really deserve to be living, and that in a way that feels fulfilling for you specifically. So thank you so much for being here. Have such a beautiful day. I hope to connect with you and see you again soon.